you know, okay. So the first thing that you will do is really, what? Really think of a topic to write about, right? So many of us, when you start, uh, it's not easy to think of a topic to write about, okay? Sometimes you really takes time to write a topic, and while you are, just enrolled in the doctoral program, I'd like you really to start thinking of a topic. Okay, so I'll just talk very slow. I will not talk very fast so that we can understand each other. Okay, if I talk very fast, tell me, Dr. Yang, too fast. Okay, so the first thing is really think of a topic. So what do I want to write about? Okay, so nowadays, uh, writing a topic is, thinking of a topic will take a little, a little time. Okay. My recommendation is while you're studying, we can already start to write our dissertation. Do you agree with that? So that while you're studying, you can start already writing your paper. Okay. Now, maybe I'd like to, you know, uh, to present to you a PowerPoint on how to go about it. Okay, so may I, present something to you. Let me just, okay, I hope you allow me to take time to show you my PowerPoint presentation, no? Okay. So, okay. Okay. Okay, let me just okay, show you just a moment, no? I hope you don't mind. I just fix my PowerPoint here. Okay. Okay, can you see that my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, you can. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, okay. One of the hardest thing really to do is really to write a research, no? And the most important thing that I always tell students is it will take you a little time to think of a topic to write about, especially when you are a PhD. Okay. And so I'd like to present this on what we call a research gap. Okay. So it was something that I thought to develop so that we can, easily try to work on writing a dissertation. So the first one is, what is really a research gap? So when you and I, when we start to really write, think of a research topic, then you say, I'd like to find a research gap. So what is a research gap? It is any topic that you are excited to write on or write about. And I always say that it should be within your own competency or expertise. So for example, you are an HR manager, or you're involved in human resource management. Okay, you're a manager, then probably you would write a paper on HRM, on human resource management. So if you are an entrepreneur, and I know a number of you are entrepreneurs, no? So probably you can write a paper on, on entrepreneurship. Okay, so you can write, if you are an engineer, for example, probably you can write a paper on production, or you can write a paper on operations. Okay, or let's say you're a manager, then you can write a paper on management or administration. You are a technology individual, then you can write a paper on technology management. So there are many things that you can write under the sun. Okay, I would recommend that a person starts to write a paper that is within your expertise. Okay, so cannot say that I'm a teacher and I will write a paper on shipping, but I'm not working in the shipping industry. Okay, so you've got, I remember, when I was helping students write their dissertation there in Jakarta, I had a student who said, Dr. Yang, I'm going to write a paper on shipping. And my question was, are you working in the shipping industry? And he told me, no, Dr. Yang, I have a friend who's working in the shipping industry. So I said, can't you not find a topic that is within, the realm of your competency? Unfortunately, all his classmates finished, but this person was not able to write his dissertation. So one time I asked him, what happened? And he told me, Dr. Yang, my friend working in the shipping industry, lost his job. So I cannot anymore write about the shipping industry. So find a research topic that you are very comfortable in. I call it a topic that is very close to your heart. Okay? So again, what is that topic? You look at yourself and you say, what am I doing at the moment? What is it that makes me, me feel comfortable? What is it that I can describe myself as very, efficient? And I have my expertise there. So that's one thing that you have to remember. So a research gap can be any topic, okay, that is within your competency. Okay, or for example, it can also be a topic that is within your situation or your environment, what you're really doing now. Okay, so what is really a research gap? A research gap is the reason why you are undertaking the story. So why do you have to write a study about it? That is what you call a research gap. So is it hard to think about a research gap? Yes. Okay, another word for a research gap is a research problem. Did you get it? A research problem. Okay, now let's continue now. So, okay, let's continue with the concept of a research gap. A research gap is a research question. Okay, a research question or a research problem. So it is a research question or a research problem. Okay, which has not been correctly answered or maybe not adequately answered. Okay, so it can be any topic that has not been really discussed so far or may not be completely answered. Now you tell me, is there any new topic in the world? No, most of them, people have studied about it already. Okay, so the topic is, some people will say, oh, I'm going to make a research, my research gap is something like this. Nobody has written about it. It's wrong. Because if you look, at many situations, then a research gap is always something that somebody maybe have written about it. Maybe it was written in Indonesia. Maybe it was written in South Africa. It may have been written by anybody. Okay? And so, but you just want to write about this particular topic. So a research gap is the topic or the area for which, okay, and this one I want you to remember, for which missing or inadequate information limits the ability of reviewers to reach a conclusion. So probably somebody wrote a paper on it already, but maybe it was not adequately. When I say adequately, it was not properly answered. It was not properly answered. So maybe I can also, let's say, it's a study conducted in Indonesia. And I say, oh, how about if I do it in the Philippines? I have the same research gap, but now the setting is in the Philippines. Is that okay? Yes. So when you're writing a dissertation, do you really have to have something that's new? No. Somebody may have written about it, but your paper is really, you know, is different. Okay. And I'll explain to you later. Okay. So even in the United States, you go and you look at publications, you will see that a number of people have been writing about the same topic. Okay. Now, if I'm the person I run to look for a research gap, then I can, study studies that were already conducted before. Okay. So let's continue with my uh, next PowerPoint presentation here. Okay. Okay. Now, how do we do that? So you tell me. So Dr. Yang, how do I get my research topic? Okay. The first step I want you to do is you read articles. Okay. Read our articles and you examine research gaps. Okay. So you read studies that were, written already about the topic and try to find out what is the research gap. Okay, how do you do that? First thing is you look at the introduction of a publication. You are able to read that. It is in the introduction, which always has a sentence or two about the reason why the research is done. So remember, when you have research publications, you will see that the author starts to write about the topic and writes the reason why they are studying that particular research. You can see that in the introduction. Another way of looking at it is you go to the conclusion. In any research published materials, you can also see a research gap in the conclusion. Okay, in the conclusion. And even in the recommendation, when you see suggestions for future research. Okay, so these are sections in which the author, having examined the literature and conducted a research himself, would always say, how about conduct a research on this one? So that's where you can find research gaps. Number one, you can read that in the introduction. Number two, you can read that in the conclusion. Number three, you can also get ideas from the recommendation, or what we call suggestions for future research. Okay, so these are three ways of finding research gaps. So again, you can look at the introduction, you can look at the conclusion, and you can look at the recommendation. Okay, now, okay, let's look for another approach. Okay, one other approach is to read reviews or summaries. Okay, that deals with the trends and changes in the discipline. There are always current trends and changes that is happening. So probably you can write latest developments that's happening, in the business program. Okay. In fact, now you will see that because of COVID-19, so many, recommendations are being written. Okay. When you read the abstract, for example, then you can read certain topics about a research, that you can write about. Okay. Other ways of doing that is you can go into what we call content analysis report. You can go into citation analysis report. Okay, you can get meta-analysis reports. Okay, and later and report findings of previous researches. In other words, where do you get your ideas? Also from published reports. Okay, so I'm just telling you the different ways of looking at, now, once you do that, okay, another way of looking at it is there are what we call, the term that I use is state of the art papers. Okay, you can have very important researches and they summarize the state of knowledge on a certain topic. So you say, what is the latest development? So again, I am repeating this, that you can identify fruitful and promising areas of future research. Okay. Then also, I think what I do is you can use Google Trends or, whatever trend, and you can find out which are the popular topics or interesting topics, okay, that you can work on. So you can just Google, okay, and try to come out with certain topics. For example, you want to, you can just type, latest in education or latest in business. And so you can already get ideas. Or sometimes if you look at, we have this yearly summit, I think World Summit, where the latest topics are being discussed. Or you can Google what? You can Google future trends also. Like for example, some of the topics that I really, looked into, may I just read to you. Some of the topics that I just propose for studies, for example, is, let me see, Uh, I'd like to, to show you this one. Wait. Okay. Some topics I propose, for example, mental health and resilience, okay, in the face of global challenges. You can make a topic on mental health and resilience in the face of global challenges. Another paper that you can, some topics may not be really in business, but for example, diversity and inclusion in regional communities. When you say diversity, then, okay, you have openness, at the same time inclusion. When I say in regional communities, it can be in Asia, for example, or even let's say in Indonesia, you speak about diversity and inclusion. Or another topic that you can write about, let's say, is business and financial recovery after the pandemic. Okay, because if you notice, a lot of businesses lost, okay, some closed down, but there were some businesses that became very successful. Okay. Okay, another one that a topic that I can, okay, that I propose, let's say, educational adaptation and relevance to the changing times, because of the need for changing the modality, so we go into flexible or modality of instruction. That can be, or in human resource, probably you can have emerging paradigms in workplace experience. So you can get as many topics. These are just examples that I really propose for a national conference, in the Philippines. And I was asking some of the people they can write, on these particular topics. So is it hard really to write, to choose a topic? Yes. Sometimes it takes you months. Sometimes it takes you a long, long time. Okay. Now, I'd like to express now different research gaps. Okay, what are the different research gaps? I will present to you the different research gaps. It is up to you now to choose what research gap you want. Okay, you want to, to address. Okay, let me explain the empirical gap. Okay, in an empirical gap, okay, the researcher, which is you, you'd like to replicate. What is replicate? Do the same study. Okay, but what is your goal? To verify or to validate whether the researchers were true or not. So it is an empirical gap, that you can consider. So you say, okay, let's say I'm looking at production, okay, and my production now will be in terms of, let's say, the quality of the manufacturing of a certain product. Okay, so somebody makes a study, let's say for, you know, for very simple, let's say you want to go into total quality management. Okay, and somebody wrote already on total quality management. And that person already, and many people have written about total quality management. Now, can you write about total quality management? Yes. Okay, why? Because maybe I'd like to question whether the findings of the persons who made studies on total quality management is the same or maybe false, maybe different. So that is what you call an empirical gap. Okay, that's one type of gap. The second gap that you can use is what you call a knowledge gap. Okay, what is a knowledge gap? Okay, this one is also widely used by researchers. There is an inconsistency or a divergence of what is known and what should be known. Okay, and therefore you can have a knowledge gap in terms of what? In terms of theory. Okay, example of a theory. Let's say you look at a career orientation theory. Okay, where you say that some people are realistic, some people are creative. So you want to make a study on the career orientation theory, and probably you can have more classifications in terms of types of people who will have their career. So this is a knowledge gap. And at the end, you should come out with your own theory. I think the more popular author, let's say in marketing, is Philip Kotler, right? And when you speak of Philip Kotler, for example, you will see that Philip Kotler started only with the 4 P's, right? Product, price, place, and product, price, place,
Promotion, Professor.
promotion. Okay, so 4. But now, not anymore 4 P's, right? How many P's do we have now? Sulfi.
7 maybe, Professor.
There are already 8 P's.
Oh,
8 already. Can you imagine that? So you see that when you come out with a theory and you want to test the theory, probably something comes out new. And so you can say, Sulfis 9 P's. That's yours already. Okay? So it is a knowledge gap. Okay, that's why when I mentor somebody who will write, we always come out with a model or a framework. And the framework is actually your theory. So it's not anymore Philip Kotler's. It says Sulfis 9 P's. That's yours. Okay? And if you have a good manager, then you become a bestseller when you have your book. Right? So I think that is what is beautiful when you're writing your dissertation. Okay? I think you've read the book, for example, of I think you've read the book of McKinsey, the 7S McKinsey. Have you heard about the 7S McKinsey model? Actually, 7S McKinsey model was actually a dissertation written by what? By McKinsey when he was writing his dissertation. And he was, I think it was, this student was in Harvard, graduated from Harvard. So it was his dissertation. And because, you know, it was just a model and he was able to come out with a book because he had a good manager. See? So when you have your gap, you can have your own. That's why in the doctoral program, when you get your dissertation, my recommendation always, when I advise our students, is really to come out with your own framework. I want to tell you that out of the 8 or 7 students who graduated from Indonesia, okay, we came out with a model. And these are, you know, written by our Indonesian students, those who graduated before you, those who graduated last August. They have their own models there. And then they can say Hamza's model. Okay? So, yeah, you can write your own model as long as we use data analytics there. Because data analytics is going to help us come out with a model. Okay? So that's another kind of gap. I will expose you to different types of gaps, no? Okay.
Hello, Miss Felina.
Yes, question. Pankar? Sir Pankar? Yes.
Is that you mean that the difference between, can you back to the previous?
The previous one. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
You mean that the difference between an empirical gap and the knowledge gap is that empirical gap, the reader, the writer want to show us that the study before is false. And then
right.
knowledge gap want to show us that I have the complete one than the other existing studies. Is that right?
No, like this, Pankar. In empirical gap, let's say you made a research. You made a research. Okay? Pankar made a research. And then I will look at your study. And I will see whether your research is correct or not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is wrong, huh? It may be right, it may be wrong. Okay, I can do the same as your research, but I will find out whether your research is correct or not correct. Yeah, I will not prove it is wrong only. I can prove it is also correct. Both, no? Dua. It's either I have it correct, it is correct, or it is not correct. Huh? Did I explain that, Pa?
Yeah, so the empirical gap means that the researchers want to show us that the reader or the researcher has an alternative theory of the something.
Yes.
And then they want to show us that the existing research studies is not maybe true, maybe not true,
yes,
but there is
yes.
another alternatives,
Yes.
another evidence. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, many use this word empirical gap. Actually, it is a research gap, but they call it an empirical gap. Yes.
And then a knowledge gap. And the researchers want to show us that the research has, they want to say that I have the complete one than existing studies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah, the knowledge gap is
To complete,
actually, yes.
Yeah. They want to complete the existing studies and then show to the audience or the reader that there is the complete one than the existing study.
Yes. Yes, yes. Okay. Actually, when you write your gap, you only choose one. I just show you examples of gaps. Yeah. You cannot, do not use empirical knowledge, all, you know. Yeah. I'm just showing you different types of gaps. Yes.
I see. Thank you.
Huh? Okay. Very good. Very good question. Very good question. Okay. Okay, let's go to another type because there are 8 different types, but some are more or less the same or similar. Okay, let me go to the next type of gap, no? Okay, this one. Okay. Ayan. Yeah, excuse me. Okay. Okay. Another gap is the evidence gap. Okay. In an evidence gap, to make it conclusive, let's look at the word conclusive. The evidence is maybe missing or no systematic literature reviews can be identified. So evidence, you're looking at the evidence. I'll give you an example, but this is not in business. Okay. Let's say somebody is making a study and comparing vitamin C. Let's say vitamin C. We all take vitamin C, right? Let's say 300 milligrams of vitamin C, and let's say drinking herbs only. You know, in Indonesia, you drink also herbs, you cook, you know, the grass and so on. Okay. Now, when you make your somebody makes a study and says it is more effective to drink herbs than vitamin C. Okay, so that is the research conclusion. The cooking with the herbs is better than vitamin C. So my question now is like this: how conclusive is your conclusion? When I say, what is the evidence that you can say that really this drinking herbs is better than vitamin C? You get it? So how sure are we, you? When I say, how sure are you? The word that I say is, how conclusive is it? Okay, that is another gap that you can use. And this one, excuse me, just excuse me for a while, huh? Hello, Dr. Baez. Oo. Dr. Baez, pwede ako magtawag sa iyo mamaya? May klase lang ako. Hello? Tawagan kita. Tawagan kita mamaya, Ma'am Baez, ha?
Mari kita kopi-kopi juga.
Okay, thank you. So do you get it? That sometimes you say something, but your conclusion is not, you know, your evidence, your findings is not conclusive. Okay, it's not a theory. Maybe something is wrong with the statistics that you are not able to show that it is conclusive. Remember, when you go into hypothesis testing, and when you have a hypothesis, remember, you have a conclusion, and you say that conclusion is, you made a study on a sample, okay? And when you make a conclusion, you say it is true for the population, okay? But my question is, how sure are you that your conclusion with a sample can be for the population? That's questionable. So that's why some people will say, okay, this is my conclusion. I made a study. I use a sample. How many sample? I made use of 500, respondents. Then can I say it is true for the entire, let's say industry in Indonesia, when I just got 400 sample respondents? So this is an example of what you call an evidence gap. Okay, it's not true that all researches are conclusive. Okay, you may have your own result because you use sample, samples, right? You have sample respondents. But can you say that it is true for the population? No. Okay, example, when we go and vote during elections, and you try now to interview Indonesians, who will be the next president of Indonesia? Okay, and maybe you just go to, let's say, a place in West Java, and you interview people in West Java. And then maybe you just interviewed maybe 2,000 people. But the people staying in West Java, you know, you have millions. So can you say that the people will vote for this particular candidate? Because that came out from your sample. Okay. So how conclusive is your conclusion? Well, this is what you call an evidence gap. Huh? Okay. Now, I hope I'm just giving you examples. You can use only one. Only one, no? Okay, another kind of gap is a theoretical gap. And I think that is the same as what I said earlier about knowledge gaps. But this one, theoretical and knowledge gaps, they may be the same. Only in knowledge gaps, okay, you can have processes, okay, you can have concepts. In theoretical, you're looking at theories only, okay, but still a gap. Is a theoretical gap a knowledge gap? Yes, but it is purely on theories. Huh? Do you get it? Okay, so I just don't want you to get confused, no? Get confused. So a theoretical gap is a form of a knowledge gap, because the knowledge gap can be about the process. Okay, whereas the theoretical gap is really about theory alone. Okay, so are there any questions there? Okay, let's look for another gap. Okay, okay, this one is also nice. Okay, sometimes you can have a gap called the implementation gap. Okay, remember, it's also a process gap. So the application gap or implementation gap is also a type of knowledge gap. Yes, you get it? It is a form of a knowledge gap. And the next one is what you call a methodology gap. It is, what is your research methodology? So is there a gap in the way you conducted your study? That can be a methodology gap also. Okay? So again, what is the process? How did you conduct your study? And many times when I talk about methodology gap, I think this is true for, in many cases, about qualitative research. Okay, in qualitative research, remember, you can have ethnographic researches. Do you know that? You can have sociographic researches. You can have psychographic researches. You can have narratives. You can have historical researches. What's the meaning of that? In a methodology gap, the way you conduct your research is different. Unlike in business, okay, in our business, our studies are what you call cross-sectional. Okay, let me just write it down here, no? I'll just write it here. So when I say there are some studies, you know, that are, you know, in business, it is just cross-sectional. Okay, okay, let me just use, okay, let me see. Okay, can you see the term? Cross-sectional. You know, in business, usually our study is what we call cross-sectional. Okay, cross-sectional researches. Okay, but for example, for methodology gap, sometimes you have what you call what? Let me write it down. Okay. Let me just put it up. Okay, sometimes you have what you call longitudinal researches. The difference between a longitudinal and a cross-sectional. Longitudinal, it takes how many months or even years? Okay, let's say I'd like to look at the culture of the people in Bali. And it will take me like how many months to study. That is what you call longitudinal. But if I just want to make a study, okay, about the tourism industry, let's say in Yogyakarta, just the tourism industry, then I can use cross-sectional. So in other words, when you have a change in methods of making your research, again, many people, it takes a long time to conduct a research. That's why my recommendation to students, if you want to finish your doctoral, don't go for longitudinal researches because it takes a long time. What you do is just, you can have a survey that's cross-sectional. And you can have your, your FGDs or your focus group discussions. But longitudinal is a little bit hard to do, right? So that is another gap. But usually in business, we don't use, that is actually an example of a methodology gap. Any questions so far? Oh, I'm just exposing you to different gaps, no? Okay, another gap. Let me just, this one is, sometimes people use what you call a population gap. What is the population gap? As compared to a sample, remember? A sample. So remember, the study for a sample is not the same as, the population. If you are studying the whole, let's say your respondents are all employees of a company, then you have a population. But if you just get a few respondents from your company, then it is a, it's just a sample. So I think I showed you different types of gaps when you have your research gaps. Now, you ask me, Dr. Yang, what is the most popular gap that is being used? The most popular gap that is being used is actually the empirical gap. It's the most popular gap that you use, the empirical gap. So when you make a study, you're safe, and sometimes probably the knowledge gap. The number 1 and number 2, these are the more popular research gaps that you can use. Any question? Yeah, any question, my dear students? Okay, so that is what you call coming out with a certain idea. Because sometimes when you write a paper, it's really very hard to find a topic about research gaps. Okay, so now, any questions so far?
Professor.
Yes, okay.
I want to know exact limitation about a novelty. I mean, it is okay. We have.
Can you speak louder, Pasulfi?
Yes, it's clear now.
Yes, now, yes.
I want to know the exact limitation about novelty. Is it okay if we use same topic, same area of survey, or same respondent, but different approach, maybe
Yes, can
different
be.
literature, different
Yes.
theory? Is
Yes.
that okay?
Yes. Actually, maybe I can introduce to you different types of researches. Do you want that? We will compare qualitative and quantitative. Okay?
Okay.
So that it becomes more clear. Okay, I'll stop sharing. I'll share another something, a different one. Okay.
Okay, permission to ask, Prof.
Yes.
If my research discuss about observation about smart city in Indonesia,
Okay.
what type of research does this gap 1 or gap 3 or gap 4? It's about
Oh, wait. Before we go into that, I just, before you look at, we go into your topic, I just want to show you, the different types of researches, no?
okay.
So anyway, so that you know what you're, okay, let me just, so I think there is no question when it comes to the research gap. Okay, are we okay with that? So when you start your introduction, remember, when you start your introduction, you have to write the research gap in your introduction. Okay, many times when I read some papers, I do not see the research gap in the introduction. So any paper, it's not something, oh, I just want to write about this. But you have to say, what is the research gap? And that should be written in the introduction. Do you get it? You have to write it in the introduction. Okay, but just for the sake of trying to show you different types of researches so that, you can be enlightened. Let me just show you something, no? Before I answer, somebody was asking about, but let me just come out with another, yeah, look at it, no? And yeah, let me share another screen, no, with you. Let me just stop this share and then have another one. Yeah. Okay. I think I have this. Can you see that my what I want to share with you? This one.
Yes, qualitative
Yeah.
research.
Okay. So, because when you're writing a paper, you can choose whether you have qualitative or quantitative. I will now show you the difference. Although I am more on the quantitative, but let me just tell you what is, what is a qualitative research, no? So usually when you have a qualitative research, it is used usually in the social science. So if you are in the humanities, you are in psychology, okay? Usually, I'm not saying all the time, but usually qualitative research is really for education, for social science, because you collect on non-numerical data. So for qualitative data, it is really describing, just describing. So to write a qualitative research, I always ask the student, do you write very well? Are you very good in writing? Because if you are not very good in writing, you cannot finish a qualitative research. It's very hard to write a qualitative research. Why? Because you need to write and write and write. Okay? So that is a qualitative research. Many times in education, they say, why don't you conduct a qualitative research? But I always feel that students find it so hard to finish their paper. Okay, so what is a qualitative research? Okay, it is a naturalistic inquiry. Take note that you need that seeks in-depth understanding of social happening or phenomena. So when something is happening, okay, that is qualitative research. That's why, remember, I was saying you go into why is it that people think that way? That is a psychographic research, and that is qualitative. Okay, a qualitative research will focus on the why. Why is it happening? But it does not say what is happening, because when you say what is happening, okay, that is already quantitative. But when you say why is it happening? Okay, why is it that people are getting sick of COVID-19? That is a qualitative research. Okay, so, okay, I will now compare the qualitative with quantitative. Okay, the first one, okay, for a qualitative research, you collect information to describe, remember, to describe Whereas here in quantitative, you collect data, you collect facts, you collect numbers. So you see the difference between qualitative and quantitative. Number two, qualitative is not too structured. While quantitative, you need to use statistics. It is structured. And then for qualitative, you don't use any statistical test. No statistical test. But for quantitative, you use statistics. See the difference already. Qualitative, all words, words, words. Describe, describe, describe. Quantitative, numbers. And then statistics. So they're two different things, you know. So when you get your doctoral degree, you will be asked, Dr. Yang, will I use qualitative or quantitative? If you want to finish at once your doctoral, go for quantitative. This qualitative is more difficult, especially if you cannot write well. Huh? Okay, next one. Okay, another difference. Okay, see? Okay, for qualitative, you have to go deeper into the topic. We have to study what is in the mind, in the heart, in the attitude of people. That's qualitative. Okay? And you don't need to have many people. For example, I want to study the leadership styles of Indonesian, maybe Indonesian entrepreneurs. I want to make a study about, the leadership profile. I can only get about 10 Indonesian presidents in the company, or maybe about 7 or 5. That's enough for me. I can study only 5 Indonesians who are, and study their leadership profile. Only 5. But in the quantitative, you cannot have 5. Remember, you should have more. Maybe if you use your Sloan's formula, then maybe you use 400 at 5% significance level. You use 500. And that is just a sample. It's not even a population. Now, if your population is, if you have a good population, let's say my population is 300 and that's your population, then you use 300, right? But if you have millions or thousands of population, then the smallest is about 400 or 399. So look at the difference between qualitative and quantitative in terms of your respondents. Sometimes you use the word participants, okay, especially in education or in the arts and, in the arts and sciences, you call it participants. In business, we call them respondents, okay? And therefore, for qualitative research, you cannot make, it's not conclusive. It's less generalizable. You cannot make a general conclusion. You get it? Whereas for quantitative, you can be more conclusive. Do you understand the difference between qualitative and quantitative? Because you're already doctoral students, you should know about these things, because if students ask you, then you should be able to answer them. And I know some of you are already teaching, and you should be able to teach, okay? And tell them the correct, answer for that. Any questions so far between qualitative and quantitative? Okay, let's continue now with our, okay. Another one that we can look at is really, again, another difference now, no? And what is now the difference? Qualitative research, what do you do? It's hard, you know why? Because you code them. There is a process in research, qualitative research. When you start to do coding, you have to code them. And then after you code them, you have to take the theme, okay? And after you take the theme, that's the only time you can come out with your conclusion, okay? So that is what is so hard with qualitative. I remember some of our students here at PWU wants to use qualitative and quantitative at the same time. And these are our students in nursing. They tell me, Dr. Yang, I want to use qualitative and quantitative. Okay, and the term that they use, okay, let me just tell you the term that they use for that. No, let me just add it here. No? So when you say, Dr. Yang, I want to get a mixture of the quantitative and the qualitative together, you call it what you call, I think you know this, right? Have you heard about it? The mixed method. Yeah, that is what they use. The word is, Dr. Yang, I will use what we call the mixed method. And I said, really? You want to use the mixed method? And then my next question is, what will you do first? Will you start qualitative and then quantitative? Or will you start quantitative and qualitative? Because having the mixed method is very hard. Just to have the mixed method, there are now softwares that will help you codify, because very hard to codify and very hard to come out with a theme. So I remember one student told me, Dr. Yang, I'm going to use both method. And I said, are you sure you're going to do it? You will use qualitative and then quantitative? Yes, Dr. Yang. And then he said, she said, Dr. Yang, in the qualitative method, I said, it's hard to codify. No, I studied a software for 1 month just to know how to codify. So it's a different software. It is not SPSS, huh? It's a different software. One software they use is Nivo. Okay, but it's a different. And then once they get the result, they put it in the quantitative. So I said, you don't need to do that at the moment. The most important thing is really, you get your doctoral degree. But some, especially in the nursing, they use what we call the mixed method. Okay, it's really very hard when they write their dissertation. Okay, so again, qualitative data needs to be coded, whereas quantitative, you just measure it. Okay, and then of course, qualitative is again text-based or word-based, whereas quantitative is number-based. Huh? Any question with that? So just the differences between qualitative and quantitative. Let me see. I don't know whether I still have, Okay, let's look at this one. Just for the sake of telling you the different types. I know you will not, you will not work on it, but there are different types of qualitative. The first one is ethnographic. Ethnographic, you study the culture. Okay, let's say the people that are, that are living, they are living in the mountains, for example. You want to make us to study, then you call it an ethnographic research. You want to study the culture of the people, in the provinces. That is ethnographic. Ethnographic is a special kind of qualitative. Okay. Next, next qualitative research I want to introduce you is what you call, anthropology. Okay, is a type of ethnographic. Okay, it's a type of ethnographic. The next type of research I want you to just is the phenomenological research. Okay, what does it mean? Something happens. Like, for example, in the Philippines, we had martial law. What happened? What happened to martial law? We study the incident. Or another example of phenomenological research is the COVID-19 pandemic. What happened? The phenomenon. Okay, that's why you call it phenomenological research. So what happened to that event of 3 years? So that's why when you make a qualitative, it takes a long time. Yeah? Any question with that? I'm just exposing you to these kinds of research. Personally, I will not recommend this. Okay, so another type of qualitative research, excuse me, another type of is actually, let me see, aside from that, okay, let me just have another research. Okay, this one is also very hard. This is what you call the grounded theory. I don't know whether you learned about the grounded theory research. No? Sulfi, never heard about the grounded theory?
Never, Professor. Never.
The grounded theory was actually developed by Glaser and Strauss in 1967 in California. Okay? And he started the very popular grounded theory. Remember, it was developed in 1967. So that's about 60 years ago. And this grounded theory was actually the basis of codifying. This one. So people will say, okay, I'm taking up education, I'm taking up social sciences. I will use a grounded theory research. So is it easy? No, it takes years to finish a dissertation on grounded theory. But I just expose you to that. Is it a new one? No, it is an old, research that was written by Glaser and Strauss. Okay, and way back 1967. So that's another type of qualitative research. Okay, another one that I'd like you to be exposed. Yeah. Oh, in fact, I have the steps in grounded theory. Okay, like this one. You need to have data collection, analyze at the same time. Then you have to develop codes, and then you have to conceptualize, and then you do theoretical sampling, and then you have abstract categories, and then you have social processes, and so on and so on. Very hard, really, to use grounded theory. Okay, but next time when you become a PhD, a doctor, then maybe if you want to use grounded theory, you have to study it really. Huh? Okay? Okay. So let me see if I have other researches. Okay, I think this one you're familiar with this. This one, a case study. A case study is also a form of a qualitative research. Remember in Harvard, what they do is they ask their PhD to come out with case studies. And then they sell the case studies. But unfortunately, it is not aligned to the environment. So probably you can make case studies in Indonesia and call them case studies, Indonesian case studies. Or we can have Philippine case studies. Okay, we don't need to follow, the studies of other countries. Okay, that's something that you can work on. But that is not a dissertation. Case study is not a dissertation. Okay, so I think the last one, no, I still have how many more of that? I think we have the narrative. Okay, let me see. Okay, a historical research. Okay, historical research is also a type of, it's a type of, what do you call it? A type of qualitative research. It talks about historical events. Okay, maybe you want to make a study about Indonesia from the when the Dutch left Indonesia until now. That's a historical research you can do. It's historical. Okay, but again, it will take a long time. Or maybe if you want, you can have the history of your company. But the question is, it is not a dissertation. Okay. Next one, that is a form of qualitative research, is a narrative research. A narrative research occurs over extended periods of time, and it's like writing a story. It's writing a story. Okay? So you can have but that is not a dissertation. Okay? So another form is what you call, I think that's all for our, qualitative research. So, any more questions about it? So maybe I just want to make my observations here. Okay. If I compare in terms of objectivity, the qualitative is not objective. Okay. Why? Because you talk about people, the quantitative is more objective. Reliability. Okay, reliability. The qualitative is not too reliable because it is subjective. The quantitative research is reliable. So that's what I'm saying. Next one, validity. Again, the qualitative is very weak. It's not so valid. In quantitative, remember we do discriminant validity and we go to Cronbach alpha for our validity and reliability test, right? When you make your questionnaire. For qualitative, very, very hard to establish validity. It is usually content validity. And when you say content validity, you have somebody who can say that your study is valid. An expert, you need to look for at least 2 or 3 experts. Okay. Now this one, generalizability, or remember I said conclusive, this one. Okay. To generalize, it's easier for the quantitative to be conclusive. So what am I telling you? Yeah. What am I telling you? It's easier to write a quantitative research than a qualitative research. Any question with that? Okay, any question? Let's have ours. Some of you might have some questions. Okay.
Okay, pardon me, Prof.
Yeah, any question? I'll entertain some questions now. Yes.
Permission, Prof.
Yes.
After knowing the difference between qualitative and quantitative research, it seemed that my research topic, namely the discussion of the smart city phenomenon, is more
Phenomenological. Wow.
Yes, I think it's more toward qualitative research. But does qualitative research take longer than quantitative research? I mean, longer.
No, the quantitative research makes you finish earlier than the qualitative research, because qualitative research is harder to write.
Okay.
If you are very good, are you a journalist? Are you a writer? Then you can finish earlier. But if you cannot write well, it's harder to write a qualitative research.
Qualitative, okay. Yes, because I think qualitative research is more in-depth characteristic to be examined.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I will recommend, because you're getting your doctoral degree, better to write a quantitative than a qualitative research. But I just explained it to you so you know that it is not only quantitative. There are other forms of researches that you can write. Okay, but my recommendation, maybe you go for quantitative.
Okay.
It's better for you.
Okay.
Yeah, do we?
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Okay, okay. A question? Any more question? Yes, 3. Ibu. Yeah. Ibu, yes.
Thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
I want to know exactly about qualitative research method in my research about culture of Riok Ponorogo. I don't know why I make the research starting my Prof.
Ibu, you want to write about culture?
Yes.
A culture of what? The company? Or your
about
province?
Yes, about Riok Ponorogo in Seoul. So
Culture.
art,
the local cultures, Prof. The local culture.
yes, thank you.
What culture is
Local
that?
culture.
Wait, three.
There's a big
Three, are
display.
you taking education? Are you taking business? Are you taking nursing? What is your PhD?
Education, Prof. Education.
Education. Yeah. Yeah. And you want to write about culture. Actually, even if you write about culture, you can still use quantitative. You can also use quantitative.
Not
Culture of
qualitative.
whom? Is it culture of the province, culture of the school, culture of what?
Culture about Riok in Indonesia, bro. In Ponorogo, especially in Ponorogo, bro.
In a
Well,
place, in a province?
Roselina, I
Yes.
think it's a kind of art culture in Ponorogo. Ponorogo is a
Is
district in Java, and there is a special art in Java named Reok. It's an
Mm.
art.
So it's a place in Java, right?
Yeah, in Java,
Yeah.
only in Ponorogo is a district.
Borobudur, you mean? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Oh.
Yes. Okay.
Ponorogo.
Okay. Okay. Three. Okay. Question. For your culture, you can study. You can still have a quantitative research. You can still have. It does not mean that if you're studying about the culture, okay, you have to use qualitative. No, you can still use quantitative. Now, maybe you can have another study next time. If you have about 5 to 10 years to do the research, then it's up to you. But if you want to finish your degree, how can you finish in 5 years or 10 years? Takes you a long time to make a qualitative research. It will take you a long time. I tell you. So maybe you can have a study on culture, but we can have it quantitative. I can help you with that.
Okay, Prof. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Any more question? Any question about our? Okay. No question. Oh, really no question. Okay. Do you want us to continue next time? Or do you want us to still, okay, how to write a research introduction? We can do that already if you want.
Okay.
Continue? Okay, I show you something. Okay, when you make a research introduction, okay, introduction, what do you write in the research introduction? When you make an introduction, let's say chapter 1, and then you have introduction. At the introduction, the research introduction, maybe can be like 1.5 pages to 2 pages only. It does not have to be long. Take note. I hope you're writing down the notes. When you make an introduction, the introduction can be just from 1.5 pages to 2 pages. But in the research introduction, you have to write your research gap. What is the research gap? We said the reason why you are writing your study. So when I read your paper, I should find out why you are conducting your research topic. So in other words, your research topic, I don't call it research title. Okay, I only call it a research topic because the research title can be improved, correct? So when you're writing, we just write the research topic. So in the introduction, you really have to write your research topic. And you say, why? Write it down and you say, why am I conducting this paper? What is the reason that I am conducting this particular research? So you say, yeah, because there is an empirical gap, so and so. So you make mention, and then you make citations already. How many citations? Maybe about 3 or 2 or 3 citations only. You don't need to make many citations in the introduction. Can you follow that? Only about 2 or 3 citations only. You can say, okay, based on the study, okay, let's say, you can say, Funkar, comma, or Funkar parenthesis 2022. According to Funkar, parenthesis 2022, he stated that so and so. You can have at least maybe about 2 citations, enough. Or if you want 3 citations, not too many citations when you have the introduction. And the introduction, should you develop how you write your paper by stating your research topic, number 1. Number 2, you write the reason why you are conducting the study. And then number 3, you have at least 2 to 3 citations. Okay, can you follow that? Yeah, any question? That's the introduction. Some people make very long introductions. No, you can only just have at least 1 to 2 pages of introduction. And then you tell them that